Former Victorian Premier John Brumby has called it quits, saying it was a tough decision, but he felt he could no longer give the 110% commitment needed to continue his career in politics. The announcement came as something of a surprise, as Mr Brumby had recently promised he'd be staying on despite losing the recent state election. It also overshadowed the newly elected Baillieu government's first day at a special sitting of Parliament. Lisa Whitehead reports from Melbourne.
As new Victorian Premier Ted Baillieu presided over the first parliamentary sitting of his coalition government, one face was conspicuously absent from the opposition benches. Minutes earlier, on the lawn outside the building that once housed his Labor government, former Premier John Brumby and his wife Rosemary faced the media.
This morning I've delivered a letter to the Speaker's office advising that I'll be retiring from the Victorian Parliament. I've done that after obviously a great deal of thought, but I believe it's the right decision for me, the right decision for the people of Broadmeadows, and the right decision for the Parliament.
The announcement ended John Brumby's 17-year career in Victorian politics. It comes 3 weeks after he resigned as leader in the wake of a 6% swing against his government at the polls.
After 11 years, the people of Victoria felt that it was time to give another team and another party a chance. And as one observer put it to me earlier today, the weight of time took its toll.
Despite promises made to his electorate that he would stay on in Parliament regardless of the election result.
Are you staying on in Parliament, Mr Brumby? My intention's been to do that, so I haven't changed my mind.
Today, the man who served as Treasurer and then Premier couldn't see a future on the other side of the House.
The right thing to do, however inconvenient, was to move on, to make way for new blood. And these things are never easy. You know, the timing is never right in this business.
This is an established trend of defeated leaders moving out of Parliament quite rapidly. Bob Hawke, Paul Keating, very much the same. Kevin Rudd is an exception to that rule. That has its own strange, peculiar dynamics. The parties really don't want them to hang around. I think it's got something to do with the acceleration of politics. It's also got something to do with the emphasis now that defeated parties put on renewal.
John Brumby knows a thing or two about renewal. The former teacher from Bendigo came to Victorian politics in 1993 after serving 7 years in the federal parliament. Within 4 months, he was elected opposition leader and set about rebuilding the party that had been dealt a devastating defeat a year earlier at the hands of Jeff Kennett. But at the 1996 election, the Labor Party could only claw back 2 seats, undermining Brumby's leadership and eventually forcing him to step aside for the charismatic Steve Bracks.
What would you say was the most significant relationship in Brumby's political career?
I think it was the relationship with Steve Bracks, and it's quite an extraordinary story when you think about it. Brumby does the hard work to rebuild Victorian Labor, particularly building up its support in the regions that is so crucial to Labor pulling off a surprise victory in 1999. But he'd lost the leadership to Bracks 6 months before.
Thank you. Kanya.
He manages to swallow any resentment about that, enters the government and develops a very productive and seemingly mutually respectful relationship with Bracks. And in many ways, Brumby is seen as the policy dynamo of the government. He lends it lots of gravitas. And then you go forward to 2007 and Bracks steps aside and gives the leadership to Brumby.
John Brumby took the top job as the Labor government's star was waning. It was taking heat on numerous fronts. After 11 years, its strong economic credentials weren't enough to convince the electorate it deserved another term in office.
I think he's greatly disappointed because it would have been the crowning moment. He's tended to be a leader at the wrong points of the electoral cycle. He fought an election in 1996 at a point where Jeff Kennett was seemingly invincible, and then he inherited the leadership and fought an election in 2010 when Labor was at the fag end of its era.
The ALP lost last month's election by just a few seats, but history suggests it's likely to suffer a much heavier defeat at the 2014 election. It's left to new Labor leader, 38-year-old Daniel Andrews, to rebuild the Labor brand that the now departed John Brumby and Steve Bracks fought so long and hard to do in the 1990s.
I don't have any regrets. I mean, I'm in the fortunate position, I think, of being able to leave the state in good shape, strong economy, huge number of people in jobs, good education and health systems, you know, the sporting capital of the world, one of the most livable places in the world. You know, I leave the state in good shape, and personally, I leave it without any bitterness or regrets.
After more than 2 decades in public life, John Brumby's family is pleased he'll be turning his attention to matters closer to home.
I've got a list of jobs.
Lisa Whitehead reporting from Melbourne.